Well, good morning, and thank you so much for being a part of the Folk Festival. We are really elated to have you on board. And today we are going to talk about your life as a musician and your journey so far. So, I'm Sukrit. I'm working with the National Park Service here, and I'm also a musician. And I hope we're going to have a good session in the next 45 minutes. So, to start with, if you could just give a brief introduction about yourselves.
Okay. So we are the Rayo Brothers. We're from Lafayette, Louisiana. I am Daniel. This is Jesse. He's the oldest. I'm the youngest.
Okay.
And we're from Lafayette, Louisiana. We've been playing music together pretty much since we were 5 and older. But as far as the official band, the Rayo Brothers, it's been about 8 years. 7 years. And yeah, so that's where we're at now. We're play sort of like Americana. That's the sort of general genre that we put ourselves in. And yeah, so that's the introduction.
Cool. As per the homework that I've done, I heard about this songwriting competition in Lafayette, which officially was the beginning of the Rayo Brothers.
Yes.
But what was the time when you actually decided that, yes, music is what we need to go forward with? Like, that was something just on paper. That was, I think, your first move of, yes, we're going to become a band. But before that, if you could just talk about that, the feelings, or maybe the time when you thought that, yes, music is the thing that I want to go forward with.
Yeah, well, I mean, like Dan said, we played music all the time when we were kids, but when that competition came along, it was just kind of, that happened at the same time that Dan had been writing songs. I had moved out, I was at college, and he was at home, and then like kind of as we were living separately at that time, I was starting to play banjo, he was starting to write songs. And so at the time that we started to get together and go to open mic nights playing the songs, that's when that competition came up. And so we put the band together to do that, and that was just the start of it. I don't know if it was, I don't feel like we've ever come to a conscious decision to try to, it's just always been one thing after another that kind of comes along.
Gradually.
Yeah.
Okay. And who amongst you is the writer? Or
Well, we both are, but I think in the beginning I had written a few songs, and but like as we progressed, especially over the past few years, Jesse's been writing a lot as well. And I'm just talking about lyrics, lyrically. Like pretty much the whole last album, Jesse wrote all the songs on it.
I see.
But whenever, as far as especially for recording and then coming together with a band, kind of the whole band comes together once the song is mostly there, mostly written, and then, you know, adds different elements to it and things like that. But yeah, we both write pretty frequently.
So Lance and Jordan, if I'm not mistaken, are the two other bandmates. How did you come across them, and if you could talk a little bit about them as well?
Yeah, well, I knew Lance a little bit from college, and we played together in a church band. So he was just a drummer that I knew, and we needed a drummer. And he also, he started playing mandolin with us too. I don't remember if I asked him to do it or why, but he was playing drums and mandolin. And then our first bassist was our cousin, Patrick. And then he moved to Dallas about a year after we started. And Jordan was just another musician that I knew from mutual friends. And he actually was, he was playing in metal bands. Like he's a really good guitarist. And I think he was just starting to kind of get into folk music around the time that our bassist moved, and I think he heard through a friend that we were looking for another bassist. And so he said, hey, if you guys hire me, I'll buy an upright bass and I'll learn how to play it. So that's how he joined.
So almost everything in your band has been happening quite gradually. It's come along when the time was right. So come to the next question regarding you people actually. So did you all start with strings from the very beginning? Like, were you both in strings?
Yeah, our mom is right there.
Hello.
Taught us guitar. I started when I was 5 playing guitar. Was guitar your first instrument, or?
Piano was my first instrument.
So Dan started on piano and then learned guitar. And then I picked up banjo when I was probably 19 years old. And Dan plays a bunch of other instruments. Like plays around with them, like cello, violin, accordion, what else? Harmonica, but yeah.
Mostly everything that you need in American music.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've been listening to a few of your songs, and if you need to narrow things down, I've noticed that travel and love, these are two things that I found, like as per the homework that I've done, as two of the common links between the songs that you all play in general. So if you could just talk further about your inspiration towards the lyrics that you'll write, the songs that you'll play, and the general theme of your songs, and yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know that I've ever tried to draw out a theme. So like you haven't said that so I'm thinking about it in that light now. Yeah, travel definitely is, now that you mention it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that in there. There's something about, just for me, the spirit that I'm in of songwriting is, for me personally, it's always kind of a narrative. The song itself is always kind of a narrative, like arc. Like I almost always, not intentionally, but it ends up being more of a story where it has a beginning and then an end to it. And I mean, that's in itself, that's a traveling just idea, just that there's a path, there's somewhere you're going. And so I guess that just comes through in whatever I'm singing. But a lot of the inspirations of music that I enjoy and listen to, I mean, a lot of folk and country and like Johnny Cash, there's so much to do with traveling on the road, or even, you know, traveling across the sea, old folk music, Irish music, things like that. So that's just something that really speaks to me in that way. As far as love, I mean,
of course, yeah.
it's always there. My wife is right here, and she's an inspiration for almost all of the songs, except the really sad ones.
But that's nice to know. So he's actually singing for you all the time on stage in most of the cases. So just out of curiosity, when you all write songs, do you all like first write the song and then give a music to it, or does that happen gradually? Or are you just like sitting on the piano and doing the same at the same time?
It comes in every different kind of way. Normally, I have a really, like, even if I have just a line, or sometimes it starts with just a lyrical line, like, or even a couple of lines, something that rhymes. Normally, it's hard for me to progress just poetically without having a melody and a rhythm in my head. So, like, it's very rare that I write all the lyrics to a song and then write music to it. I don't know if that's ever happened. And then sometimes it's just, like sitting on the piano, sitting at guitar, and just playing something, and then like a melody will pop into my head, and then like I'll just sing kind of words that sound like they go with the melody, and then something usually stems from that, you know, and then something that rhymes, or then a story comes out of it, something like that. And sometimes it just starts with a story or a theme, and then I write based on that. So yeah, it's every different kind of way.
So again, from a songwriter's point of view, when you're writing songs, do you like to conclude the story when you said that you're writing a story, or do you like to keep the lyrics in such a way so that the audience gets to comprehend how the story is supposed to end? Like, what is your point of view about that?
So, yeah, and I'll let you talk on that because I know we probably differ, but I usually like to conclude it. Like, I have a hard time letting a song go if I don't know how it ended. But I do definitely appreciate it, and there's some songs that leave something to be imagined or something like that. And I definitely appreciate that, but it's hard for me personally to just let it, leave it unended. But I'll let you, if you have anything to say on that.
Yeah, I guess for my songs, I mean, sometimes they do have a conclusion But if I'm not always looking for a conclusion when I'm writing a song, and if there's nothing that seems to like, sometimes like I could try to play around with one, but then it feels too forced or like not natural or like it doesn't belong. So then I just will leave it open. I mean, I feel like, I mean, it's so cliche, but you know, they say like it's about the journey and not the destination. Like, I mean, I do feel like it's the same thing in a song too. It can be like if you're just exploring a certain topic or feeling or whatever, that you can still get something out of the exploration even if it doesn't end up in a destination.
I'm sure, like, since I'm a musician as well, and you guys write, whatever comes up in albums or on stage is probably just 1/10 of what you'll actually end up writing. So, has there been any unfinished songs or something that y'all have been thinking about for a very long time that y'all probably want to take out at some point till now, or has everything been established? Just out of curiosity.
No, there's a lot. Really, the only time we've, as a band, or not the only time, but we rarely will complete a song, like as far as, not necessarily lyrically, but like, okay, this is how the song's going to go, this is the structure, unless we have an intention to play it live or on an album. And sometimes we'll play it and you know, it doesn't feel right. But there, excuse me, there are a lot of unfinished, there's just an unending supply of unfinished songs.
I'm sure.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Coming to the next question, you're from Lafayette, Louisiana. And since I'm from outside America, I was told that Louisiana happens to be the musical capital of America, where most of the music is from America. And since you're playing a genre that has been practiced by so many predecessors before you guys, and there is so much of, you know, they have already shown the way of, you know, how things are supposed to be. So what is you guys' perspective about being a part of Louisiana and, you know, being a member of this musical state of the United States, and of course, playing a genre where you guys are probably the younger ones in the genre, following footsteps of many senior ones who've been in this way for a very long time. So, what is your perspective regarding this aspect?
So, the
like disadvantages,
region,
advantages,
yeah,
and whatever.
So the region of Louisiana that we're from, more specifically, is there's a lot of French music, and we don't as a band we don't play or sing French, and I don't speak French, and, you know, but like our uncles and they all play Cajun, Creole, that type of music, and so really we drew we drew from the folk traditions of it, as far as playing songs of ancestors and things like that.
Right.
But we actually stem more towards like the Appalachian style, especially in the beginning, as far as bluegrass and things like that. Because there wasn't a lot of that for us growing up. There wasn't a lot of bluegrass and folk as far as people we knew and played with growing up. That was more from just music that we listened to, music that was in the house with our parents. There's a lot of gospel and bluegrass and things like that. But as far as from the actual region, it's the culture. I think because it's almost isolated, or it was, especially a couple generations back, because they speak a different language growing up, French. That culture is so much stronger. And has retained a lot of its roots and things like that. And I think that we drew more from that, just the feel of strong culture and family and things like that, more than the actual French music with accordion and things like that.
I guess.
Yeah.
And you also, like you just mentioned, that how your uncles have been playing Cajun music, and you learned playing the guitar from your mother. So you were born in a musical family
Yeah.
with a lot of musical traditions already existing in your family. So do you think that is an added responsibility to you to, like, since you already belong to that family, you got to take it on? Or do you think it was more of an encouragement for you that, okay, like it was already a catalyst towards your musical journey?
For me, it definitely never felt like a responsibility.
Okay.
Like I've never even thought of it in that way, because it was something that was there there all the time in the house, but it wasn't something that was like, hey, you have to play music.
Okay.
It was like, when we showed interest, it was very, very greatly supported.
Okay.
Like our mom taught us guitar and started teaching me piano, and like it was there for us if we were willing to, if we wanted it, you know, but it was never forced in any way.
Right.
Yeah.
And probably also because, I mean, most of the people in our family do play music, but very few of them actually do it as a career. I mean, they have, so it's more of like, I mean, we're playing it at family reunions and family gatherings, and I mean, now there are a lot of bands in our family that do like travel, play festivals and all that stuff, but only one that I can think of that's like, that's their full-time dedication and career. Music has always been a very important part, but it's not like this is the family business. You know? So
I can understand. Coming to another genre of questions, that is, I've seen instances of Sarah Jade playing the fiddle with you people at some point of time. So when you talk about your own band and all the various types of instruments that you all play with the different kind of songs, you bring in the fiddle in, and sometimes you experiment with various kind of music and instruments as well. What is your perspective about this entire thing of, like, do you think your band is complete? Do you think you all need more instruments? Or like regarding your band and the instruments that you all play?
We've always liked to experiment and change things up. I mean, now we're playing with more electric guitar than we used to, and like electric bass. And so Sarah played sort of, I mean, obviously she comes from the tradition of Hadley Castile and Cajun fiddling. And now we have a classically trained violinist, Nikia Young. She's playing with us today.
Okay.
And she plays with us at most of our shows nowadays. Or sometimes we'll have a pedal steel player, or sometimes it'll be just the four of us. So we always, you know, are open to try new things.
Cool. So since y'all are the younger generation in this entire genre, and y'all are doing so much of experimentations, but what I have noticed, like I think this is the same thing all over the world, that especially during these folk concerts, it is the target audience who actually come to listen is above a certain age. You don't really get to see too much of younger generations. But you all being young yourselves and doing these experimentations, who would your target audience actually be? Like, have you all thought about it at any point in time?
I wouldn't say that we have, we haven't really thought about what we want our target audience to be. It's always been, but we've seen, especially at live shows and like places and different festivals and stuff, we play. And when we play locally, it's not always, we haven't done a lot of strictly folk or bluegrass or festivals, or like where people are there just to hear that type of music.
Right.
A lot of times we're mixed in with a lot of other genres. But whichever venue we play, and then I've noticed that it seems that there's something there for everyone, really. And especially at a live show. And then we sometimes, knowing what we're going into, we'll kind of gear the set towards a certain direction. So like we might play more older folk tunes that we know a lot of people will know.
Right.
And then sometimes if there's a younger audience, we have a few songs that we play that are modern, either rock or even a hip hop that we put with banjo and like change it up so that other people recognize it too. So yeah, I mean, it depends on where we're playing. Like we don't have a decided target audience for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, did you sir have anything to say to this?
Yeah, his target audience would be at least everybody, because
Okay.
I teach strings myself, and part of my string program, violin, she's classically trained, I am too, but a lot of them, I have a banjo, I have a mandolin, I have guitar classes too, so as extra things and piano, for extra time after they play the violin, viola, cello, or bass, I give them banjo time, and we compose, we use smart music and go out there and play and write songs. I have some students that's written 150 songs too, so, but it's more symphonic. But I have a lot of students that are playing churches and sings country. And I have one right now on my phone, and he sends me stuff. He does rock and roll, does Germany, and he says, "Does this sound good?" I said, "Well, let me listen to your band, the band that he does, or whatever." And so that's it. And as far as folk music goes, to answer your question about Louisiana, the north, before the north you get the Louisiana hayride. That's where you get your banjo and the prairie. You've got to remember that Cajuns is prairie, and on the western side of the Mississippi River is the Spanish influence. So you're going to have more of this type of music of the bluegrass that's going to be north of Louisiana. And if you go to Hickory Grove around Pineville, they have their little bluegrass festival, and you can go different places and they play it all the time. So you hear a lot of bluegrass, and I have a lot of students. I have one student that's a master on the banjo. She's wonderful. I even told her she should go up to Nashville, because I have a cousin that plays Kentucky, so we play Kentucky people. And that's what we do. We do it in the schools. So I'm trying to encourage it in the schools. It's not just, you don't have to sit there and just play class. You just whatever you love, do it, create it, and go from there.
Cool stuff. Thank you, sir. We've been discussing a lot of serious matter rather. So coming to the fun stuff, again, like since I'm a musician myself, I believe like the lyrics, what we play on stage or what we play in albums is probably, again, half of what the actual music we play at homes or in our rehearsal pads. So if you could just share some incidents in your rehearsal pads or maybe backstage or something like this, just to like loosen up the mood a bit. So if you all have had certain experiences which you would like to share with our audience, which has not been documented, and which you all want the audience to know, of course.
Like something musically or just like?
Musical, something fun, or an incident that you will never forget, that.
I mean, ones we can talk about.
Okay.
Do we have?
I mean, like maybe a story from the tour or something. I don't know what. I mean, should we mention the Jordan at that place in?
We can.
That's absolutely up to you.
So we do have a tradition after this is an old tradition. After some shows, it was a really good show. We called a shirtless chest bump, and we'll just we always wear pearl snaps for that. Apparently for that reason, but we'll just pull up just all four of us guys will just shirtless chest bump, usually all sweaty and gross. And so that's an interesting and strange tradition.
But that happens on stage?
No, well, usually backstage or
okay.
So you don't have to worry about seeing that.
It's been like a good show, a good crowd and everything.
Usually back in the parking lot by the van or something.
So I hope that happens today.
Yeah.
I totally look forward to that. So tell us something about the newest album that you all just launched, the Victim and the Villain.
Well, this one, I mean, it's just like every album has been like a progression and a little bit different from the last one.
Correct.
I mean, one of the things about this one that's different is on all the previous albums, Dan did the vast majority of the writing, and so this is the first one where I did the majority of the writing, so that was different. And then the way we recorded it, this was the first time we recorded live as a band, as opposed to like working in a smaller studio where we were tracking one instrument at a time, everyone listening to a click track. We recorded this one in a big studio, dockside studio. All of us were there in our booths and playing it together, which is, I mean, you have an energy in that it's hard to capture otherwise. I'd say that was a major difference. Also, this is the first time we've had a producer,
Right.
Louis Michaud, who's with the Lost Bay Ramblers, Grammy-winning
Yeah.
artist, and so he was in studio with us for every recording session, and he played with us on one of the songs, and just contributed ideas. I mean, I probably the biggest difference was the people we worked with on this album. Tony Daigle recorded it,
Right.
and Louis Michaud produced it. And just working with those guys and recording it live, it was such a great energy and great process. And it comes out in the final product. I think it sounds better than anything we've done before.
Just again, a question out of curiosity. Why the victim and the villain?
Well, that came from one of the songs. It's one of the songs on the album had that title, and we felt like it applied to the album as a whole too, because it's kind of about, I guess, like examining yourself, and you know, if it feels like the world is not, or if you feel like you're like not in place in the world, or like something's like out of sync, or you're not happy, I guess is kind of a trite way to put it, but then Victim and Villain, the song is about like kind of looking at yourself, figuring out what part of you is not right, you know, as opposed to like just trying to change the world and changing the world to like trying to find your happiness in that. It's more about looking at yourself and seeing what you can do to improve, or you know, like telling the truth to yourself. And Victim and Villain is parts of yourself that so I felt like a lot of the songs on that album were kind of in that same mindset.
It was a very like intriguing, because when I came across the album for the first time, you have this question in your mind whether you are the villain or you are the victim, and maybe the music is kind of the pathway that gives you the experience. And if you could just share a little more about your experience about playing with Louis and Tony, if you could, like, apart from the fact that, you know, they added a lot of energy and a lot of extra things that you all did not have the experience about earlier. So if you just talk a little more about working with them.
Yeah, well, Tony is, I mean, he's got, I don't even know how many Grammy-winning albums, and I mean, everyone wants to work with him for a reason. He for one thing, he just works so fast, and it's just, like, you know, he's not as much a producer. Like, he's not trying to like shape what you're doing, but he'll take what you're doing and make the best thing out of it. And so, you know, I don't even know, I mean, when we were in the studio, he had microphones set up all over the place, and like, I don't, you know, he knows how he wants to capture each instrument, and he's doing it all at the same time. So kind of the way it worked, we would set up, kind of play through the song until he had all the mics the way he wanted, and he was like, all right, now we're going to start, basically run through 3 takes of the song, playing the whole thing through, and then just work from there, see if we want to try something different. So the way it worked in the studio, Tony and Louis were kind of behind the board. We would do a take, and then Louis would give us some ideas, and we'd try that and do the next take. And yeah, it was really great working with Louis, because he had, I feel like for almost every song, he had some idea, like, oh, well, how about we play that guitar riff this way, or try this. Like the one of the songs, Hard to Tell, we had like 3 or 4 different ways of playing it, and couldn't really decide which one we liked. And then he came in with a completely, like, he said, hey, here's a drum beat, and that's all it was. Like, play this drum beat, and it starts out with that snare pattern, and then the whole song built on top of that. It was completely different from any way we had played it before, but it just worked. It had a really smooth groove, and it felt good, and that was all done in the studio. And then Tony just, I mean, he works so fast. Like, by the time we finished our first session, he was like, he was mixing on the fly. Like, when we were changing over between songs, he was like just mixing on the fly, and he gave us, when we left the studio that day, we already had like, not really mixes, but like we could listen to what we had done, and it already was sounding good. So that made us excited to keep working on it.
Okay. If you could give us some spoilers about the works that you all want to do in future? Like, any plans yet?
I don't think I have any spoilers to give.
I mean, we've been, ever since the release of this album a few months ago, we've been so busy with the touring and
Right.
making videos and like all that stuff. We really haven't had time to do planning yet for like, but I mean, Dan and I both have tons of ideas that we
Right.
just haven't even brought to the band yet because we've been so busy, you know, working on this new album and then, you know, the touring and stuff that follows. But yeah, I really have no idea in my head right now of what the next album is going to sound like. I mean, we have so many ideas. There's probably 5 different directions that it could go.
So, talking about the future, tell us one stage which is like your dream stage you want to be on, and one artist that you would like to collaborate with, like for sure, at some point in your life.
The stage would be Red Rocks.
I was going to say the same thing. Avid Brothers probably be, or artist collaboration.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah. We hadn't talked about it, but we agree on that.
Or Chris Thiele.
Yeah.
Well, you guys need to talk about it.
Yeah.
But why Red Rocks? Like, why is it like?
It's, I don't know, I went there when I was in college and it was amazing. And it's just an iconic venue that it has amazing sound there, and it's, I mean, they do such a good job of curating their shows. It's like, it's always, it's not, I don't know, I just feel like it's a venue that's different from most other ones. I mean, for one, just the setting, being in that beautiful outdoors,
Right.
you know, like that natural arena in the mountains. The sound is great, and they always put on, like, they always have the right kind of shows there. So it's just, yeah, it's just a legendary place that is kind of, I think, is probably on everyone's list.
Yes. Okay. So, before we move on to a small performance from you guys, I would like to have, I've written down certain words from most of your songs, and we'd like to have a little rapid fire round where when I say the word, you guys need to say whatever comes to your mind the first, like whatever. But it has to be instant, so that's the game.
Okay.
Okay? So, maybe one you and second one goes to you. Okay. First would be road trip.
18-wheeler.
Red River.
What's that?
Red River.
Red River.
Blues.
Wedding.
Ring.
Okay, interesting. Wine.
Roses.
Memory.
Sadness.
Mercy.
Mercy. Heart.
Music.
Love.
Hell.
Fire. I just read Dante's Inferno, so I actually do have a lot of images that I'm thinking about.
Right. Love.
Marriage.
You're just repeating words now. Nostalgia.
Country store.
Heart. You can't say mercy now.
Romance.
Ooh. Silence.
Black.
Insomnia.
Coffee.
Siren.
Fire.
Kiss.
Rose.
Island in the sea.
Sunshine.
Misery.
Stephen King.
Dream.
Soft.
Sins. Sin. S-I-N. Sin. You're getting the tricky ones.
Yeah. Without. Going without.
Okay. Victim.
No.
So that's the inside story.
No, I was just gonna say don't say villain. I wasn't gonna say
okay.
don't say villain. That'll be too obvious. No, victim, bondage.
Story.
Book.
Stars.
Constellation.
And the last one would be hope.
Prayer.
So, before we move on to another performance, just one last question. That is, since y'all are the younger generation, you know, taking up the mantleship of music, what suggestion would you have for the younger generations following you? If you would have something to say to them.
I guess. I mean, kind of sounds weird as a young person trying to give advice, but I don't know. I guess I would just say, don't try to be popular. Don't worry about trying to. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess in my mind, I'm mostly thinking about social media. I feel like that's mostly a cancer on society, and just has to do with that, I guess. Just worry about yourself and the people you actually have real relationships with. But I mean, that does apply as an artist, though. I mean, obviously personally, but yeah.
Well, anyone in the audience who has some questions?
Did y'all start a music program in school?
Did we start in school?
He's asking that, did you start your music program in school?
We were homeschooled, so yes.
That's all right.
So yes, we did start in school.
Okay. Well, home is where the music is. So.
My dad taught me bluegrass and country, and took trumpet and then hooked up organ, and from there I took strings and I
So coming back to you guys, I've given you a lot of words, and if you could just play something, either from these or whatever you feel like.
This is one of the first songs that I ever wrote, probably the first 5 or 6, in the first 5 or 6, and it's one of the first ones we played as a band too. And it's very simple, and it's called Caroline.
Okay.
Caroline, what can I say? You always have to run away, but I understand that you're afraid. But I'm the man to keep you safe. I know the past has done you wrong. You have chose to be alone. My love for you I can't disguise. When I look into those lonesome eyes, Caroline, you be mine. You will find I will be kind, Caroline. Caroline, why does it seem you've got me dancing on the street? I'll dance for you to dance with me. There's not a song I wouldn't sing. For your love, I'd take the
Thank you so much. Well, it seems we still have about 3 minutes. If you all would like to fill that up.
Okay. Okay. Would you like to tell? Okay. This one off of the new album. It's called Hard to Tell. Well, I saw it in your eyes. Those words turned to lies, the ones we said last forever after. I heard it in your voice when love became a choice to take our lead, rebuild our scattered. Darling, I stay here if you want to. Be your man if you only let me try. Are you still holding on? Is your heart already gone? I can't tell. It's hard to keep on caring. You walk out the door. I don't know anymore when you'll return, or if you even will. I cried the first time you left, but now my mind is set on let you back. You walk out again. Darling, I stay here if you want to. Be your man if you only let me try. Are you still holding on? Is your heart already gone? It's hard to tell. It's hard to keep on caring. It's hard to tell. It's hard to keep on caring.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
The pleasure was entirely ours, and I hope you'll enjoy it. And I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Very good.